Everyone. We're so glad that you're here with us today. As Abby shared, we're going to be talking about the importance of practicing self-care and gratitude, and just a little bit about who I am. So I have my master's of marriage and family counseling and therapy, and I practice at Insight Counseling Centers. I see about half of my clients in English and half in Spanish. And I work a lot with trauma, abuse survivors, self-esteem issues, women's issues, as well as anxiety and depression and PTSD. And Amanda as well will be presenting. So Amanda can go ahead and introduce herself.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Gibson. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. I'm also currently seeking out my second master's degree in clinical mental health counseling to pursue my licensure as a professional counselor. I am currently right now a counseling intern here at Insight at the Murfreesboro location. My professional background consists of working with individuals struggling with eating disorders, gender and sexuality issues, self-image and confidence issues, depression, and anxiety. Through my work as a counselor, I strongly encourage utilizing mindfulness skills, self-care, and gratitude practices to help manage difficult situations and emotions. So I hope that some of the tools and information that we share with you today are going to find helpful for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So not to hone in on the negative, but we are going to start with some of the bad news to kind of get an idea of the landscape that we're all kind of living in. It's probably no surprise to many of you that anxiety disorders are the most common in the US, with 40 million adults being affected. And that's about 2 in 10 people. And anxiety disorders show up in many different ways. It can be generalized anxiety, it can be panic disorders, and it really affects someone's way of living and their life. And they are the most treatable, and yet unfortunately, only about 37% of those living with some sort of an anxiety disorder actually seek treatment. And people with an anxiety disorder are 3 to 5 times more likely to have to go to the doctor for some sort of ailment, and they might also be hospitalized later on down the road for some sort of psychiatric disorder. And anxiety disorders are complex to understand, but some of the risk factors are genetics, brain chemistry, personality, and then environmental factors and life events. So also, we're also facing a lot of depression. So a lot of people in America also struggle with major depressive disorder. That's about 16 million American adults, or almost 7% of the population here in the US. And this is actually the leading cause of disability for people ages 15 to 44. And it's interesting that the age that people really start to develop this is about in their 30s. So when life stressors really can mount up and it's hard to know how to deal with those. And also another interesting fact is that major depressive disorder is more prevalent in women than in men. So we know from this that unmanaged chronic stress, and if we leave it alone, there can be so many negative effects on our physical, emotional, psychological well-being. So this is really just a reminder to seek help. I always say to my clients that when they come and seek help, it's always a sign of strength and never a sign of weakness, to say that I know that I need some help with this. And also, in addition to all of that, if that weren't enough, right, we're living in that word that we keep hearing everywhere, the unprecedented times, and where we're all going through something traumatic together. And so many people are experiencing anxiety around actually obtaining the coronavirus and experiencing anxiety symptoms that maybe they hadn't ever experience to the extent that they are currently. And so that's something to also just keep in mind with our current climate. And then in addition to all of that, something that's kind of an offshoot of those issues is also burnout and compassion fatigue. And so burnout can be defined as exhaustion of physical or emotional strength, and it is the most often noted consequence of chronic stress in the workplace. So just like the previous slide was talking about what happens when we leave chronic stress uncared for and we don't tend to that, well, the answer is burnout. So a physical and mental exhaustion will take place. And there was actually a study done in 2002 by Meldrum, King, and Spooner in Australia, and they found that 27% of professionals who work with traumatized people experience extreme distress from this type of work. And at the time of the study, almost 55% were distressed and 35% were either very or extremely emotionally drained. So this is something that especially those in the helping professionals like counselors, nurses, doctors, teachers, those on the front lines really need to become aware of. And just also in addition to that, in another research study, about 76% of counselors were rated at being at a moderate risk, a high risk, or extremely high risk for burnout. So this is something we need to pay attention to, and we really need to tend to this for ourselves as well as for others.
Yeah, so the topic of burnout, we would also like to address the term compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue can be caused by the trauma of helping the traumatized. It is a consequence of a buildup of secondary traumatic stress or secondhand trauma. Compassion fatigue is the emotional and physical exhaustion that occurs in aid workers over time, just kind of like Hannah was previously mentioning. It is a condition often experienced by medical professionals, mental health professionals, and first responders, such as firefighters and police officers. Social workers, counselors, and medical professionals can develop compassion fatigue from vicariously experiencing trauma, such as through emotionally supporting trauma survivors. This is due directly to providing human services to those who are suffering. So now I'd like to share some of the statistics with you in order to get more of a clear understanding of the impact compassion fatigue has on some of the frontline workers. So in a study of Oklahoma City trauma workers, about 64.7% exhibited some degree of severity for post-traumatic stress disorder. And 74% of counselors were at either a moderate risk, high risk, or extremely high risk for compassion fatigue. Similarly, in a study of Northridge earthquake mental health workers, 60.5% met criteria for PTSD. In recent studies, it has been found that mental health professionals experience emotional exhaustion alongside the usual organizational sources of stress and could also potentially experience compassion fatigue and vicarious traumatization. These stressors may have harmful effects on counseling students' effectiveness and success by reducing their capacity for attention, concentration, and decision-making skills. So those are some really some heavy stats there, and just understanding the direct relation to experiencing burnout and compassion fatigue and how that directly affects us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that, Amanda. So now I just want to invite you guys, as you kind of see all these words on the screen, tension, panicking, fear, anxiety, stress, pounding, anger, frustration. These are words that bring up a lot for us, and we all experience these things from time to time. And I want you just to, if you feel comfortable in your mind, just think about the things. Maybe there's one or two or several things that are on your mind today that are bubbling up to the surface that you are currently feeling stress about or feeling anxiety about. And give yourself a moment just to kind of center in on those. And then I want you to take a deep breath. So just inhale through your nose and then exhale through your mouth. And if you feel comfortable, I'm going to invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze down. And then take another deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just notice how you're breathing today. And do that one more time. Take another deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I would invite you to put your feet flat on the ground and even lay your hands gently on your lap. And then just notice how you're feeling in your body. And without judgment, just pay attention. If you have any tension, any openness, just honor that sensation and notice what's coming up for you. And then I want you to think back to those things that were bubbling up earlier. Maybe it's stress about work, finances, a relationship, future decisions. Just hold those in your mind. And then imagine with me, there's a beautiful box in front of you. Maybe it's carved out of wood, or maybe it's wrapped in beautiful paper. And just imagine yourself opening that box, taking the lid off, and then placing each of those things that you're carrying this morning into that box, one by one. And gently place the cover back on the box and take another deep breath in through the nose and let it out through the mouth. One more breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Great job. Do it one more time. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Now imagine with me, you're outside. You're in front of a calm river. You hear trees rustling above you. You look up and see the sun shining down on you. You might even hear birds chirping. And you have that box in your hand that you placed all of those worries in. You make your way down to the river. You gently place the box on the river. You see it ebb and flow, go up and down. And you watch the box gently drift away. And you take another deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And in and out. One more time. In and out. Give yourself a moment. Check in again with how you're feeling. Notice any changes or if anything stayed the same. And when you're ready, in your own time, maybe move your head side to side if that feels good, or stretch your back. And then slowly and gently just open your eyes and come back to the present moment. Wonderful. So I hope that helped and kind of displayed that we are resilient and we have incredible power inside of ourselves to calm ourselves down through mindfulness.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hannah, for that. That was a very relaxing experience. That guided meditation was wonderful. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
So we do want to provide you with the good news, because I think we all could really use it right about now, right? So just like Hannah said, yes, we are resilient. We don't, however, want to minimize the negative effects that these events within our community are causing us to feel. But we do want to encourage you to try and shift your focus towards the things that we can control in our lives. We are capable of incorporating beneficial habits to reduce the likelihood we will experience negative side effects. So mindfulness-based practices in studies with varied populations have found significant decreases in anxiety, depression, mood disturbances, somatic symptoms of stress, and present moment pain. Now, some may wonder, what does using mindfulness look like? It can look different for everyone, but the basic meaning behind mindfulness practices is the process of intentionally bringing our awareness to the present moment without judgment. Being mindful is intended to be done on purpose, while calmly acknowledging our thoughts, our feelings, and our bodily sensations. Another way to look at this idea is incorporating mindful habits in our daily routine to help reduce automatic mindless behaviors. Other mindfulness-based studies have demonstrated improvements in quality of life, health-related quality of life, general health, sleep quality, immune function, and decreases in psychological distress and physical symptoms. Findings from a 3-year follow-up evaluation revealed maintenance of reduced levels of anxiety and depression, thus demonstrating the long-term effects of this program. The results of this review are in line with those of prior systematic reviews on yoga for depression. 2 systematic reviews found evidence in the effectiveness of using yoga for reducing depression. Another more recent review reported that yoga was better than just usual care, relaxation techniques, or even aerobic exercises in reducing depressive symptoms as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now that we've shared with you that it is possible to manage difficult emotions and everyday life stressors, where do we begin to actually follow through with action? Through much research, it has been found how beneficial practicing gratitude can have on our overall well-being. For instance, people who regularly practice gratitude can experience fewer aches and pains and report feeling healthier than other people. Additionally, it has been shown that participants who practice gratitude regularly for 11 weeks were more likely to exercise or engage in some kind of physical activity than those in the control group. It has also been found that grateful people are more likely to take care of their health overall. They exercise more often and are more likely to attend regular checkups at the doctor, which is likely to contribute to further longevity in your life. Beyond increasing the likelihood that we could engage in more physical activities, there have been links found between grateful people and heart health. People with hypertension who essentially count their blessings at least once a week experienced a significant decrease in their blood pressure. I do think it is important to note at this time that we are not medical professionals, and so we are not suggesting that if we consistently practice gratitude, that we will be able to completely eliminate physical and medical conditions altogether. However, we are encouraging positive habits that could promote an improved quality of life. The second benefit of practicing gratitude is improving our personal relationships. A recent study found evidence that expressing gratitude towards our romantic partners and friendships resulted in improved quality of the relationship. Additionally, it has been found in a study conducted in 2014 that an act of kindness, showing appreciation towards a stranger, or even acknowledging other people's contributions can lead to new opportunities and encourage productivity. The third benefit of gratitude is that it can reduce a multitude of toxic emotions such as resentment, envy, frustration, and regret. Robert Emmons, who is a leading researcher on practicing gratitude, has conducted several studies that have found a link between practicing gratitude and our well-being. So the idea is, if we change our perspective to appreciating the things that we do have, we can try to focus less on the things that we do not have. Enhancing empathy and reducing aggression is the fourth benefit. Grateful people are more likely to behave in a pro-social manner, even when others behave less kindly. And this is according to a 2012 study by the University of Kentucky. In this study, the participants who ranked higher on gratitude scales were less likely to retaliate against others, even when they were given negative feedback. They experienced more sensitivity and empathy toward other people and a decreased desire to seek revenge. It is common for people to struggle with the ability to sleep, or to even maintain being fully asleep throughout the night. I am unfortunately one of those people. So it has been found in a 2-week gratitude intervention that sleep quality improved and blood pressure was actually reduced in participants, leading to enhanced well-being. For those that are looking to improve their sleep hygiene, it is suggested to write in a gratitude journal before going to bed. Ending your day with a thankful heart and mind can encourage a restful sleep. Improving self-esteem is a huge win in my book, and that is the sixth benefit in practicing gratitude. A 2014 study found that gratitude increases athlete self-esteem, which is an essential component to optimal performance. Other studies have also shown that practicing gratitude can help decrease the likelihood of comparing ourselves to others around us. Social media can be the biggest culprit in providing different kinds of platforms that easily trigger our insecurities. So taking a break from the scrolling and focusing on what we do have in our current lives can have such a positive and powerful effect on our mindset. And lastly, individuals who find themselves to be emotionally resilient are more likely to focus on staying grounded, regulating uncomfortable emotions, and coming up with appropriate solutions to problems. For years, research has shown that gratitude not only reduces stress, but it may also play a major role in overcoming trauma. A 2006 study published in Behavior Research and Therapy found that Vietnam War veterans with higher levels of gratitude experienced lower rates of post-traumatic stress disorder. Furthermore, a 2003 study found that gratitude was a major contributor to resilience following the terrorist attacks on September 11th. Recognizing all that you have to be thankful for, even during the absolute worst times, can promote resilience. So now that we've addressed the benefits of practicing gratitude, how do we go about executing it? Studies have shown that practicing gratitude on a daily basis encourages improved mental health for our mind, our body, and soul. Being as consistent as possible with this practice is going to be very important in order for you to reap the benefits. Along with consistency and being intentional, it is helpful to choose a specific time of the day to practice gratitude. So some like to do this first thing in the morning when they wake up. It essentially starts a positive mindset for the rest of the day ahead of you. And then on the flip side, some prefer to practice gratitude before going to bed. This type of practice can remind ourselves what we are grateful for that happened during the day. Some have found this particularly effective in incorporating this into their sleep hygiene. You could also practice it in the middle of the day. It really doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you and what works best for you. Also, making sure we have a comfortable environment while we practice gratitude can enhance the overall personal experience. Some like to practice gratitude in bed, in their personal office, or even outside while enjoying some fresh air. This practice can also be enjoyed by yourself or even have it shared with a friend or a loved one. Lastly, how we make note of our grateful thoughts is entirely up to you. So some like to have a journal to write these gratitudes down, while others like to discuss them with a friend, a loved one, or even their higher power. Another idea could be writing a letter to someone expressing your appreciation for their efforts, their support, or the relationship that you share with them. Again, how you practice gratitude is entirely up to you. You do not have to follow these suggestions exactly. We just encourage that you customize these practices to however is most comfortable for you. And remember, practicing gratitude can be kind of difficult at times. So we also would like to remind you to be kind to yourself and practice some grace when you're going through difficult times. So now that we've talked about mindfulness and practicing gratitude, let's go ahead and talk about self-care. We have worked up the energy to this point because mindfulness and gratitude practices are essentially at the core of what self-care looks like. So, what does self-care actually mean? Research says it is a multidimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement in strategies that promote healthy functioning and enhance well-being.
Yeah, and we say that self-care can look like the actions or practices of taking care of our overall well-being while we improve our mind, body, soul, and relationships in order to navigate daily life stressors. So now let's look at exactly what that means and how do we tackle self-care planning. So before we actually dive into creating a plan, I think it's important to actually look at the why, the what, and the how. And why, you can ask yourself, what is your motivation? You know, we need to have a why before we actually move or change or act. So it could be that you notice certain things in your life that are unhealthy patterns that you're saying, I want this to not continue, and I care enough about myself to take action. And then the what is the actual plan. So it helps so much, just like Amanda was saying, to have some sort of like a concrete idea, but also to hold that loosely and know that each person is different. So we are going to share one example of a self-care plan with you all, but realize that you can modify that and make it work for you. You can go and do more research on your own and find something that fits. This is just one option of many. And then how, it's important that in these practices, we also have accountability for ourselves to keep going, because goodness, I know it's hard sometimes. And we need each other in that. So if you have a trusted, safe friend, if you go see a therapist, if you have a coach, a mentor, a spiritual advisor, a pastor, share it with a trusted person in your life, in your inner circle, who you can say, you know what, this is my plan and this is my intention. Will you help me hold myself accountable? I know that personally for me, that has made all the difference in some of these small actions to take care of myself. And a little bit of self-disclosure about myself, I do experience chronic pain. And so with that, the intentionality of self-care is paramount for me. And I think one thing that's kind of beautiful that I've seen many people do, and I do for myself as well, is to have a self-care mission statement. So I actually have this written out and I put it above my mirror, and almost every day I look at it, and it reminds me about why I'm doing these things and how to care for myself. And so an example of this, I'll read it to you, and then I would invite you to think about crafting one for yourself. And what would that look like for your own life? So this is mine. Today, although I may be in pain and experience things that are outside of my control, I choose to be grateful for this life, my relationships, my work, and my faith. I choose to be generous to myself and others and choose to live wholeheartedly out of my values. I will choose to make my self-care needs a priority. And so now let's talk about the different areas of self-care. These are some of the different domains, and there are others, but we thought these were kind of the ones we would like to highlight.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go ahead and address the first three, and Hannah is going to address the rest. So first, mental self-care involves doing things that help you stay mentally healthy. Practicing self-compassion and acceptance, for example, helps you maintain a healthier inner dialogue. So some questions that you can actually ask yourself to evaluate whether or not you are practicing this currently is, are you making enough time for activities that mentally stimulate you? Also, are you doing proactive things to help you stay mentally healthy? Some examples of using mental self-care could look like reading a book, solving a puzzle, playing a board game with a friend or a loved one, or going to a museum. Doing things that bring you joy and also encourage mental stimulation, and could also encourage relationships as well through experience. Next, you need to take care of your body if you want it to run efficiently. So keep in mind that there's a strong connection between your body and your mind. So when you're caring for your body, you'll think and feel better too. Physical self-care includes how you're fueling your body, how much sleep you're getting, how much physical activity you are doing, and how well you're taking care of your physical needs. So again, some questions that you can actually ask yourself is, are you getting adequate sleep? Is your diet fueling your body well? Are you taking charge of your health? Are you getting enough exercise? Some examples of engaging in physical self-care could be going for a walk, getting an average of 7 to 8 hours of sleep, drinking enough water throughout the day, and fueling our bodies with healthy foods that make us feel energized. Also, it's important to have healthy coping skills to deal with uncomfortable emotions like anger, anxiety, and sadness. Emotional self-care may include activities that help you acknowledge and express your feelings on a regular basis. So some of the questions that you can ask yourself again is, do you have healthy ways to process your emotions? Do you incorporate activities in your life that help you feel recharged? And again, some examples that I'd like to share with you are talking to a therapist, writing in a journal, creating art, or playing your favorite type of music.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Amanda.
Thank you.
And I love all of those ideas and questions. So continuing with those areas, the next one is our spiritual part of our lives and our spirituality. And this can look different for each and every one of us. And yet it's interesting that research tells us that people who practice spirituality or religious rituals or gatherings actually tend to live a healthier lifestyle. So again, this looks, however it's going to look for you, it might look different for you than it will look for me. But this just involves creating a deeper sense of meaning and purpose and understanding and connection with yourself and with others. It could look like going out in nature. It could look like being a part of a church, or it could look like praying on your own, centering prayer, meditation, yoga, and anything that nurtures and helps our spiritual selves. I like to also think about our spiritual selves as a place for meaning making. So processing things and making meaning, sharing experiences, about your life and your purpose, your goals, and where you're going as well. And so a question to ask yourself is, what are the meaningful practices that you're currently engaging in? And maybe what are some of the practices that you used to engage in that you've kind of not been doing recently? And how can you kind of lean back into those? And so the next area or domain is our work life. Now we know that work can cause incredible stress, but also can bring us a sense of purpose and fuel our sense of accomplishment and self-worth. But it's really important to assess and think about a healthy work-life balance and how to obtain this. We live in a culture that is constantly on the go and kind of wears busyness as a status symbol. And so we have to work extra hard to create those healthy boundaries between work and life. And that is something that I encourage a lot of people, especially that I see, a lot of my clients, to really assess and think about, because if we don't have that separation and that ability to take care of ourselves, we can't then bring our full selves into the work that we do. So boundaries around work is super important. And then another thing you could ask yourself are, what are some ways that you can take breaks during the day, especially if you're feeling overly stressed? I actually have a yoga mat in my office, and now that I'm at home, I have like an exercise ball next to me that if I need to, I'll just use that a little bit, and it helps kind of re-energize me. Sometimes I'll take breaks and I'll do yoga or I'll do meditation. I'll go outside. So whatever that looks like for you, giving yourself permission to take the breaks you need so that you can go back to the work and do it well. And then lastly is our relational health. And so we know that relationships can cause a lot of stress as well. They can cause so much meaning and help and support, but they also can be really difficult. And kind of what Amanda was saying, that along with your emotional health, realizing that therapy can also help relationally. So if you're struggling in a marriage, struggling with family members, you can also seek out therapy for yourself or alone to really help strengthen that and get to the heart of the issue. And it's important to remember that everyone is different, right? So some people have a higher need for that relational connection, and some people they're okay with less close relationships, and that's all right. Everyone is different. You just have to figure out what's your kind of place and that good balance for you. I also like to ask people, well, what are the relationships for you that are worth investing in, right? So you get to choose what relationships you spend time with. And you can also decide if you're spending too little or too much with certain people, and really make that a choice. And it doesn't have to just be a mindless thing, but really give some thought to that. And who are the relationships you want to continue to invest in? Alrighty. So now we're going to look at an example that was actually created. This self-care plan was created by social workers out of the University of Houston, Lisa Butler and Shirley Reiser. And I really like this plan because it kind of goes through all those domains that we were talking about, and it gives you space to really think about what you're currently doing, and then if there's anything you would like to add in addition to that. And it gives you, as you can see, all of those different domains: mind, body, emotions, spirit. And then on the next page, you have work, relationships, and it gives you also space to add in any other places in your life that you would feel that you would like to concentrate on your current self-care practice. And then the last page, this is also really important. It talks about barriers to maintaining these self-care strategies, right? We know that life is busy, it's hard, and sometimes we feel like we can't do it. Maybe it's a negative, self-defeating belief. I have had many clients say, when I go to try to do these self-care things, I just can't. Something's in the way. So write that down. Do you feel like you don't deserve this? Some people really have to get over, get through that because they've been taught or have been conditioned to think that, they're not worth this, that they're not worth taking care of themselves. And so whatever those things are, whatever those barriers are, if you feel like, gosh, I just don't feel like I have enough time, well, how can you carve out even 5 minutes, in the day? So figuring out ways that you can address those barriers and how to remind yourself that you can practice self-care is in the next box as well. And then on the bottom left, it talks about negative coping strategies. So we all know that we, at times, go to things that might not be as healthy. We might go to eating sugary foods, or we might go to, certain people go to alcohol, or like Amanda was saying, can get sucked in on the negative side of social media or comparison. There's many things, and there's no shame in that. We've all experienced those things in some way, shape, or form. So just be honest with yourself and list them out so you can see them and evaluate and look at them. And then you can ask yourself, well, what will I do instead? Maybe I'll try to spend more time in nature. Maybe when I have that urge, I'll reach out to a close friend. Maybe I'll try to pray. There's different things that, whatever works for you, to try to figure out a replacement and something as an alternative.
Yeah, so now we actually would like to share some resources with you in order to practice some mindfulness practices. So the first couple, well, I'm going to be addressing Calm, Insight Timer, and Buddhify. They're all very similar, but have some minor differences in them. So first I'll go ahead and talk about Calm. I believe that this is the most popular one, just based off of advertisement through social media. This is the one that I end up seeing most often advertised. So basically this app, it gives you a 7-day free trial, I believe, and then you do have to unfortunately end up paying for it. But what it does offer is a variety of tools through offering very calm music to creating white noise. So if you have like a difficult time sleeping at night, there's different sound effects that you can actually choose to play while you're falling asleep, such as, some people find hearing thunderstorms very soothing, or hearing, crickets outside at night. So there's different options for that. And then on the flip side, there's also guided meditations too, and it kind of tailors to what your needs are. So if you're trying to address anxiety or depression, or you're wanting to practice gratitude, there's different options for that, which is really cool. Insight Timer is very similar to Calm, but it's completely free. So this one is actually one of my personal favorites, just because it gets very specific you can choose the time frame that you want to engage in the mindfulness practice. So if you feel like you can only really handle 5 minutes at that time, you can actually select, and it'll narrow down the guided meditations to what is 5 minutes and under. And then for those who want something longer, you can choose anywhere from I think 30 to even 60 minutes. So something that's significantly longer. And so once you kind of build up that practice and that comfort level in practicing mindfulness, that could be very beneficial as well. And again, it is really good at categorizing exactly what you're kind of looking for. So if you're having a difficult time falling asleep, there's mindfulness practices around that. If you're experiencing anxiety or stress or guilt even, there's specific mindfulness practices for that. So it's really cool that you can pick the category and have it address that specific thing that you are wanting to work on. And then lastly,
real quick,
about to say something, Hannah? Sorry.
Oh, you're good. I just wanted to also mention that the insight timer has different language options. So that's great if you know other people who don't only speak English. So that's a great one because it actually has free mindfulness and meditations in Spanish and other languages. So I just wanted to add that too.
Absolutely. Thank you. I did not know that. So thank you so much for jumping in and telling us that. And then lastly for Buddhify, this is the one that I use most often. This one you pay, I think it's like $3 or $4 right off the bat. There's no subscription or anything else that you have to pay down the long run. So in my opinion, the $3 or $4 is very worth it with the quality of this particular app. So this one is very specific to guided meditations. And basically what it looks like is it's like this very colorful wheel, and each color indicates different categories that you want to address again. So there's just basic mindfulness practices, and then there's if you're going on a walk, if you're at work, like a work break, if you're trying to fall asleep, or if you're having difficulties falling asleep, it gets very specific. So there's also addressing difficult emotions. So if you're dealing with stress or guilt or shame, there's some guided meditations around that as well. So yeah, I find that one to be the most helpful. And the people that record these guided meditations in this particular app, I find their voices very soothing. So I think that's probably why I personally kind of gratified towards the Buddhify app. But yeah, that's just an option as well. So
awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
yeah.
So the apps that I'll be talking about are Headspace, Tapping Solution, and Dare Break Free from Anxiety. So Headspace, I have less familiarity with, but I know a lot of my clients have really liked it in the past, especially if you're kind of visually oriented. They have like shapes that kind of like remind you to breathe in and breathe out. And I've heard a lot of good things about Headspace. And there is also a subscription, I believe, to that. So a part free, but then the rest, if you want full access, you'd have to pay. And then the next one is Tapping Solution, which not many people might know about this, but there is a type of meditation based on Eastern meditation practices of acupuncture. So it's the mind and body connection. And you actually tap different places in your body, your hand, the side of your eyebrow, your side of your face, above your lip, under your lips, your clavicle, I think it's called, under your armpit, and then on the top of your head. And it's a guided meditation, and it helps you also track your anxiety levels before you do the guided meditation and afterwards. So that can be really cool to see your progress. And it works a lot, really well with people with high anxiety levels and also chronic pain. And then I also really love Dare Break Free from Anxiety because it's targeted, just really honed in on anxiety issues and panic attacks. And they also have a whole new one about coronavirus anxiety and health anxiety. And like Amanda was saying, the person who does this app in particular has a very, very soothing voice. And I think it's just when you find that connection, try a couple different of these out and see which one kind of speaks to you, and, just give it some time and look around the app. Don't be intimidated by them and just start kind of engaging, but they can be such a great tool, such a great tool. All right. And so lastly, we just wanted to close with a quote. Some of you probably are familiar with the work of Brene Brown. I know she's gotten a lot of popularity because she really speaks a lot of truth, and I think a lot of things that our culture in particular needs to hear. And this quote really resonated with me, and especially about what we've been sharing with you all today. And she says, "We can't practice compassion with other people if we can't treat ourselves kindly." So that's really important. We need to start with ourselves first. The old adage, you can't pour out into others if you're not filling yourself up first. So we really appreciate you all being here with us today. We would love to open the time up for questions or comments. And also, I just put our emails up here if you would like to connect with us at Insight or follow me on social media. So. I don't know if you're up there, Abby. You probably are, but maybe you can help us navigate some of the questions.
I am here.
Beautiful.
So far, seeing some great comments here. Thank you guys for those. Great recommendations in the chat. I added a question, so I'll read that to you guys and you can answer that. So how can we work through guilt and shoulds regarding self-care and taking care of ourselves? So for example, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, well, I should be taking care of myself. I should be exercising. I should be going to church, doing all these things, but I'm not currently doing those things. So how do I get over the hurdle of like, I have this running to-do list in my mind of all these things I should be doing to take good care of myself. And it's kind of overwhelming with the shoulds and the guilt.
Yeah. That's a really good question, and it makes sense. I think a lot of us struggle with that from time to time. And so I think whenever we recognize that this is going to sound funny, but when we're shooting on ourselves, that something's a little off, and reminding ourselves that how can we help ourselves and it come out of a place of true intention instead of a place of comparison and, like you were saying, guilt. And so if something's bringing up guilt, really explore, well, why is that there? And create an environment for yourself where instead of it being like a to-do list, finding places that have you felt alive, that sparked joy, that sparked just calm and peace. And instead of it being like, well, I have to do all these things that this person's doing, reminding yourself that you're a unique human being, and it's going to look different for you than it is for someone else. And then also some weeks and some days are better than others, and that's okay. So I think going back to that self-compassion piece, and that allowing yourself to be human and realizing that it's not about what we all should do. It's about, well, what brings joy and sparks our ability to care well for ourselves. And I don't know if that helps at all, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know if Amanda.
Yeah, no, that's great. I definitely want to add on. Thank you for your perspective on that, and I agree with everything that you said. Something for me that I kind of work with my clients when they say things like that to themselves, and they say, I should be doing this right now, or I feel guilty that I haven't done this yet. So it's this constant struggle of putting pressure on ourselves for needing to do these things. And so what I kind of do when I'm working with my clients is encouraging them or challenging them actually to change their language. So instead of saying I should exercise, say I'm going to exercise in a half hour. So kind of eliminating the pressure and setting intention instead. So I really encourage changing the language. Also, I like to kind of just bring it back to the very fundamentals of all this and asking why you want to do these things. And so it kind of helps you understand, well, why is it that I do want to exercise? Or why is it that I do need to go to church? Like, why is this important for me? So bringing it back to the very basics and kind of grounding yourself in that and understanding the why that you want to engage in these self-care practices.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We are at the end of the hour here, but I just want to double check one more time, see if anyone else had any questions for Hannah or Amanda. And if not, we can adjourn. And I will make this recording available. I'll put it on our website and I'll send out the link to the email that you signed up with. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you, Hannah and Amanda, for this great presentation.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for being with us too.
Yes, thank you so much for attending, and we really appreciate you being present with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.